What if I told you some of the craziest, most innovative cars out there have flown completely under the radar? As we go from the oldest examples to the newest supercars, each of these bizarre creations will blow your mind. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into it. Number 15 on the list is the 1959 Cadillac Cyclone XP74, one of the most futuristic and distinctive concept cars to ever come out of Cadillac. Designed by legendary GM designer Harley Earl, this car looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie rather than the late 50s. The Cyclone's transparent bubble roof was crafted to protect passengers from the elements, and could even retract automatically, giving drivers a seamless open-air experience. This canopy came with silver coating for UV protection, which is good thinking on Cadillac's part. Under the hood, the Cyclone packs a 325 horsepower V8 engine, giving it some serious power. That might not sound insane by modern standards, but back in the 50s, that was top-tier muscle, especially in a concept car. One of the Cyclone's standout features was its radar-based collision avoidance system. In 1959, the system could sense obstacles in its path, and it would actually alert the driver if they were getting too close to an object. This was groundbreaking technology, and though it didn't make it to the mainstream production back then, it paved the way for modern collision avoidance systems we see today. The Cyclone also had headlamps tucked into the nose that would pop up from the grills. These headlights were designed to stay hidden until they were needed, and the exhaust was routed out the sides, in front of the rear wheels, giving it an aggressive, sporty edge. In terms of design, the Cyclone's space-age look was inspired by the growing fascination with rockets and space travel in the 50s. Although the Cyclone never went into production, its influence can be seen in Cadillac's designs for years afterwards. Number 14 on the list is the 1936 Stout Scarab, a true oddball in automotive history. Often called the world's first minivan, designed by aircraft engineer William Stout, the Scarab was a mobile living room, decades ahead of its time in both design and concept. The Scarab used a rear-engine, rear-wheel drive setup. Stout moved the engine to the back, freeing up a flat floor inside the car. This provided more room than typical vehicles of the 1930s, which usually had front engines and drive shaft tunnels taking up floor space. This innovative design gave the Scarab an incredibly spacious interior, which was completely reconfigurable. The rear seats could be rearranged, and the front passenger seats could rotate 180 degrees, turning the cabin into a social space. Under the hood, or technically at the back, the Scarab was powered by a 3.6-liter Ford V8 engine, producing around 85 horsepower. It was enough to hit a top speed of around 80 miles per hour, which was quite respectable back then, especially for a car that prioritized comfort over speed. One of the most impressive features of the Scarab was its approach to suspension. Stout gave the Scarab a fully independent suspension system, a rare and advanced feature for the time. This setup ensured a smoother, more comfortable ride, contrary to most cars of the day that used solid axles and leaf springs. The Scarab was also built with a strong focus on aerodynamics. Its smooth, streamlined body was inspired by aircraft design, reducing wind resistance and improving efficiency. This was a futuristic approach at the time when most cars had a more boxy, upright design. In fact, Stout only produced about 9 Scarabs, each one handcrafted and slightly different, adding to its uniqueness. The Scarab might not have caught on back in the 30s and never went into mass production, but it foreshadowed the minivan designs that wouldn't become popular until decades later. Number 13 is the 1956 Buick Centurion, a prime example of the jet age influence on car design, combining futuristic style with advanced technology that was way ahead of its time. One of the standout features of the Buick Centurion was its full panoramic roof, made from a transparent bubble-like material, giving passengers a 360-degree view of their surroundings. Back then, most cars were still working with small windows and thick roof pillars, so the Centurion's design was like nothing else on the road. But that wasn't even the most advanced part of the Centurion. This car was one of the first to feature a backup camera, a groundbreaking piece of technology from 1956. Instead of side mirrors, the Centurion used a rear-facing camera that displayed its feet on a small screen in the dashboard. Keep in mind, this was nearly 50 years before backup cameras would become a common feature in cars. The Buick Centurion was also designed with innovative aerodynamics in mind. Its sleek, bullet-like shape was influenced by aviation and jet fighter aesthetics, helping it glide through the air with less drag. Under the hood, the Centurion was powered by a 255 horsepower V8 engine, giving it solid performance that matched its futuristic look. Although only one prototype was made, the 1956 Buick Centurion remains an icon of the 1950s concept cars and is celebrated for its influence on future automotive design. Number 12 is strong, with the 1973 Mazda RX 500. It is one of the most fascinating concept cars to emerge from the golden era of rotary engines. Built as a lightweight, high-speed experimental vehicle, the RX 500 boasted a sleek aerodynamic design and was powered by a 982cc twin-rotor Wankel engine, delivering around 247 horsepower, a massive output for such a small engine displacement. What's incredible about the RX 500 is its weight. Thanks to its fiberglass reinforced plastic body, it only weighed about 1,874 pounds. This ultra-lightweight build, paired with the high-revving rotary engine, allowed it to reach an impressive top speed of around 125 miles per hour. Not bad for a car built in the early 70s. The RX 500's design was a true head-turner, with a body reminiscent of space-age concepts. The most distinctive feature? Its rear taillight display. Mazda designed a series of rear lights that change colors based on the car's speed. Green for deceleration, amber for cruising, and red for acceleration. This was meant to communicate the car's movements to others on the road, showcasing an innovative approach to driver interaction and safety that was far ahead of its time. Inside, the RX 500 had a cockpit feel, with gauges and controls wrapping around the driver, almost like a jet fighter. The idea was to emphasize the car's futuristic, high-tech vibe, giving drivers a feeling of piloting something out of a sci-fi movie. Although the RX 500 never made it to production, its legacy lives on as an emblem of Mazda's commitment to innovation. It paved the way for future rotary engines like RX-7 and RX-8, and remains an icon of design and technology. Only one original RX 500 was made, and it's preserved in Mazda's museum in Hiroshima. Just shy of top 10 at number 11 is the 1935 Cadillac Aerodynamic Coupe. It was a groundbreaking car that redefined luxury and innovation during the pre-war automotive era. In a time when most cars were still boxy and utilitarian, Cadillac took a radical approach by focusing on aerodynamics and streamlining, elements practically unheard of in mainstream auto design at the time. Under the hood, the Aerodynamic Coupe featured a powerful V8 engine, which was an impressive power plant back in the 1930s. With an output of 135 horsepower, this engine helped the Aerodynamic Coupe reach a top speed of around 95 miles per hour. That was absolutely remarkable in its day, especially for a car that weighed over 4,000 pounds. One of the Coupe's standout features was its advanced suspension system. It boasted an independent front suspension, a feature Cadillac adopted to provide a smoother and more stable ride. Inside, the Aerodynamic Coupe didn't skimp on luxury either. Cadillac decked it out with high-quality materials and design touches that would make any passenger feel like royalty. The 1935 Cadillac Aerodynamic Coupe was a limited production model, with only approximately 10 units produced, making it incredibly rare today. At auction, the 1935 Cadillac Aerodynamic Coupe can command prices ranging from $300,000 to over $500,000, depending on the condition and originality. Barely making it into the top 10 is the 1986 Buick Riviera, which might look like a sleek luxury car on the outside, but under the hood, it was hiding one of the most groundbreaking features of the decade, the first touchscreen interface in a production car. This touchscreen wasn't just a flashy addition, it was functional and ahead of its time. With it, drivers could control everything from climate system to the radio, adjust the odometer, and even monitor vehicle diagnostics. The screen was a black and white CRT display, similar to a small TV, which fit right into the center console and was easy to access while driving. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The touchscreen, while innovative, faced some criticism for being a distraction. Back in the 80s, drivers weren't used to having so many options available on a screen while behind the wheel. This interface allowed for such a high level of control that it sparked debates on whether it was actually safe for drivers to interact with the touchscreen while driving. They couldn't even imagine that in 40 years, we would be watching YouTube and driving at the same time. The car also had a plush interior and comfortable ride that made it a solid competitor in the high-end American car market. In 1986, Buick produced around 21,189 units of the Buick Riviera. Even though the graphic control center didn't stick around for long, it was discontinued a few years later. It proved that drivers were ready for more interaction and control over their vehicles. Today, you can pick up a clean example of this car for $10,000 to $15,000. At number 9, I've got our next marvel, the 1935 Hispano Suiza Dubonnet Xenia, a car that looks like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie from the golden age of Hollywood. Designed by André Dubonnet, a French aviator, race car driver, and inventor, collaborated with the renowned coach builder Jacques Sauchek to create a body that would turn heads. The interior was just as luxurious as you'd expect, featuring plush seating and Art Deco details that scream sophistication. The Xenia also boasts unique curved side windows and sliding doors that disappear into the body, features that were unheard of at the time. Under the hood, the Xenia is powered by a mighty 7.9-liter Hispano Suiza H6B inline-6 engine, delivering around 160 horsepower. But the real star of the show is Dubonnet's independent suspension system. He developed a setup that used coil springs and hydraulic shock absorbers in a way that provided unmatched ride comfort and handling precision for its era. This suspension design was so innovative that General Motors purchased the rights to it and implemented it in some of their models in the 1930s. The 1935 Hispano Suiza Dubonnet Xenia is a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. The last known public sale of the Hispano Suiza Dubonnet Xenia was in 2009, when it was purchased by the Mullen Automotive Museum. The exact auction price for this sale is not publicly disclosed, but given the rarity and uniqueness of this vehicle, it can be assumed that it fetched over $10 million. Number 8 is the 1950 General Motors Leaber Concept that was a show-stopping, futuristic creation showcasing GM's vision of the future. Designed by legendary GM stylist Harley Earl, it was inspired by jet fighters, aimed to create a vehicle that would capture the excitement of the atomic age. The car was crafted from aluminum, magnesium, and fiberglass, exotic materials for its time, which made it incredibly lightweight. This, combined with its low aerodynamic stance, gave it a unique look that stood out even among the most innovative cars of the 1950s. Under the hood, the LeSabre boasted a supercharged 3.5-liter V8 engine, capable of running on both gasoline and methanol, a cutting-edge dual-fuel system, and produced around 335 horsepower. The coolest feature was an automatic rain sensor that would close the convertible top if it started to rain, something that didn't become a standard feature in production cars until decades later. The car was never mass-produced, but many of its features and design ideas, like the heated windshield, electric jacks for tire change, and an automatic lubrication system, would go on to influence GM's production models. Standing at number 7 is the 1967 Lamborghini Marzelle, one of the most radical concepts Lamborghini ever produced. Created to test the market's interest in a 4-seater Lamborghini, and designed by Marcello Gandini at Bertone, it stood out with its glass-heavy, going doors and a near-transparent rear section, which provided unprecedented visibility for both drivers and passengers. The Marzelle famously made its debut with a royal touch. Driven by Prince Rainier III and Princess Grace of Monaco at the 1967 Monaco Grand Prix. Under the hood, the Marzelle was equipped with a unique engine, a 2-liter inline-6 derived from half of the Lamborghini Miura's V12 engine. This unique engine layout produced around 175 horsepower, an interesting balance of performance and economy. The interior was filled with intricate details, from the hexagonal steering wheel centerpiece to the dashboard gauges housed in hexagonal enclosures, highlighting Lamborghini's commitment to avant-garde design. The gull-wing doors were one of the Marzelle's most distinctive features. The doors were almost entirely made of glass, creating an open, airy feel inside the cabin. While the Marzelle never made it to production, it left a lasting impact on Lamborghini's design philosophy and on automotive design as a whole. It also paved the way for the Espada, Lamborghini's production 4-seater that followed shortly after. At number 6, we've got the 1957 Ghia Streamline X, better known as the Gilda, one of the most iconic concept cars from the 1950s. Created by the Italian design house Carrozzeria Ghia, it was designed by Giovanni Savanuzzi, who envisioned it as an exploration of aerodynamic efficiency. The car was named after the character played by Rita Hayworth in the 1946 film Gilda, embodying elegance, mastery, and allure. The body of Gilda was shaped with a strong emphasis on streamlining, reflecting the fascination of the 1950s with jet-age design and space exploration. Its teardrop shape, pronounced tail fins, and minimalistic front grille were all tailored to reduce drag and enhance airflow. Savanuzzi tested the car's design in a wind tunnel to ensure it was as aerodynamic as possible, something that wasn't common in car design at the time. The extensive wind tunnel testing paid off, as Gilda achieved an impressive low drag coefficient, which was ahead of most production cars of its era. Although Gilda was initially built without an engine, Ghia intended for it to be powered by a gas turbine, a bold choice for its time. Gas turbines were rarely used in cars due to their high cost and impracticality, but they represented a futuristic vision that aligned with Gilda's avant-garde design. In 2005, however, Chrysler engineers retrofitted the car with a small gas turbine engine, making the concept a reality nearly 50 years after its creation. The turbine engine provided smooth, high-revving power at the expense of fuel efficiency and high noise levels. It's housed in the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, where visitors can see firsthand the level of detail and design ingenuity that went into this 1950s masterpiece. Entering the top 5, the 1955 Lincoln Futura was a concept car like no other. Built by Ford's Lincoln division and designed by the legendary team of Bill Schmitz and John Najjar, the Futura's most striking feature has to be its bubble-top canopy. This dual-clear dome roof allowed for a nearly 360-degree view, though it wasn't exactly practical. The glass created a greenhouse effect, causing the cabin to heat up quickly under direct sunlight. Under the hood, the Futura packed a powerful 368 cubic inch V8 engine, paired with a push-button automatic transmission. And although it was just a concept, the Futura was fully functional, unlike many show cars of the era. However, the mechanical components were borrowed from other Lincoln models at the time. The Futura also pioneered the use of pearlescent paint, which gave it a unique look under different light conditions. Created by mixing fish scales into the paint, the car's original white finish had a shimmering, almost iridescent quality that made it stand out even more on the showroom floor. This paint innovation was cutting edge in the 1950s, and would go on to influence car finishes for decades. One of the coolest parts of the Futura's story is what happened after its time as a concept car. It was eventually transformed into the Batmobile for the 1966 Batman TV series. Legendary customizer George Barris bought the car for $1 and reworked it into one of the most famous movie cars of all time. Fourth place belongs to the 1953 GM Firebird XP21, a concept car that looked like it belonged in the skies rather than on the road. This concept car was heavily inspired by jet planes and was even designed with a jet turbine engine, making it one of the most unique vehicles ever created by General Motors. Its sleek, bullet-like shape made it stand out as one of the wildest concepts ever built by GM. The car even had stabilizer fins, like a real airplane, to help with high-speed stability. Under the hood, or more accurately under the rear body, was a gas turbine engine capable of producing mind-blowing 370 horsepower. For context, that's an enormous amount of power for a car from the early 1950s. GM basically took a jet engine and dropped it into a car. This engine was so intense that it operated at around 13,000 RPM, while standard engines typically maxed out around 4,000 to 5,000 RPM at the time. The car had a unique throttle setup, closer to what you'd see in a plane than in a car. You didn't just press a gas pedal, you throttle up, much like a pilot would. It even had a fiberglass body, a material that was uncommon in cars back then, but has since become a staple in performance in sports car manufacturing. The Firebird XP21 was never intended for production, but it made a lasting impression. It symbolized the forward-thinking, tech-driven spirit of the 1950s. Opening top 3, we've got an oddball. The 1961 Ferrari 250 GT SWB bread van is not your typical Ferrari. It was created as a rebellious response to Ferrari's own lineup by Giotto Bizzarini, an engineer who had left Ferrari to join a rival team. The story behind the bread van's creation is as unique as the car itself. Giovanni Volpi, a wealthy private racing team owner and former Ferrari client, wanted to buy a 250 GTO directly from Ferrari. However, after Volpi hired former Ferrari engineers for his racing team, Ferrari refused to sell him one. So, Volpi commissioned Bizzarini to create a rival that could take on the GTO, leading to the birth of the bread van. The bread van is based on the Ferrari 250 GT short wheelbase, which was already a highly competitive car. When Bizzarini and his team got their hands on the 250 GT, they wanted to make it faster and more agile to compete against Ferrari's new 250 GTO. Instead of trying to modify the original body to boost performance, they took a different approach, transforming the rear of the car into a shooting brake style with a flat, boxy design, which earned it the nickname bread van. This shape reduced drag and improved top speed on long straights. Under the hood, the bread van packs a 3-liter V12 engine, producing around 280 horsepower. This engine setup, coupled with a 4-speed manual transmission, pushed the car to over 170 miles per hour, an insane speed for the 1960s. In terms of racing, the bread van made its debut at the 1962 24 Hours of Le Mans. Despite a few technical issues that prevented it from finishing, the bread van stunned the crowd by keeping pace with the original Ferrari GTOs during its time on the track. It didn't win the race, but it made that wagons can be as fast as well. The 1961 Ferrari 250 GT SWB bread van is a unique one-off car, and its valuation at auction today is estimated to be between $25 to $30 million. Standing at number 2 is the grandfather of all electric cars. The EV1 marked the first time a corporate automaker tried to market a fully electric car as a lifestyle product, albeit not too successfully. In 1997, Car and Driver called the car the start of something big. They were right, but it would take over a decade longer for electric vehicles to really hit their stride. The GM packs a 137 horsepower motor into a lightweight coupe body, similar to the Honda Insight. This motor directly drove the front wheels, and drew power from a now antiquated lead-acid battery pack, which could only be charged using a proprietary induction plate and power pack connected to the nose of the car. Car and Driver's test of the EV1 showed it to be quick enough for the late 90s traffic. However, the battery would only last about 60 miles. The method which was GM released, the EV1 was anything but traditional. The only way to get one was by $399 monthly lease, and only on the West Coast. Production was extremely limited, with 660 built for 97, and 457 more for 99. The 99 model also got a more advanced nickel metal hydride battery, improving range. After EV1 leases expired, General Motors' policy was to repossess the cars and have them unceremoniously crushed. A few examples were saved for various museums, and a few more have somehow survived the crusher's grasp and found their way into private hands. Due to these circumstances, there is virtually no market history or auction data for the GM EV1 because they are not available for private ownership. If one were ever to be sold in an auction, which is highly unlikely due to legal and ownership restrictions, its price would be difficult to predict. At number 1, I put the most stylish villain car you can have. The 1932 Mercedes-Benz 710 SLK Try Roadster is an absolute icon of early automotive history. Known for its bold styling and incredible performance, this car was commissioned by the Italian Count Carlo Felice Trossi, a huge racing enthusiast. The Try Roadster was based on the SSK, Mercedes-Benz top-tier sports model of the 1920s and early 1930s. What made the Try Roadster so unique wasn't just its power, but also its highly unusual look. The body, custom designed to count chassis specifications, has an Art Deco aesthetic, with sweeping curves and round features that make it instantly recognizable. The 7.1-liter engine produced an astounding 300 horsepower with its supercharger engaged. This kind of output was revolutionary, as most other cars of the era barely broke 100 horsepower. The Try Roadster could reach speeds of up to 120 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest cars in the world back then. Inside, the Try Roadster kept things simple yet elegant. The interior is mostly metal and leather, reflecting the minimalist approach of the time, focused on functionality rather than luxury. The car now resides in the Rolf Lauren collection, where it stands as a symbol of luxury, innovation, and early automotive excellence. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more cool car content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.